Happy Tuesday, everyone. It's also Emily Campagno's birthday. I wonder how she's going to celebrate it. Yeah, you probably don't remember that from last year, huh? So glad I kept the tape. All right, welcome to the decade of lower expectations, where Joe Biden hears applause when he makes it through lunch without leaving his teeth stuck in a sandwich. Low expectations, it's the new black. First, there's San Francisco, where the city paper asks earnestly, should residents and businesses tolerate burglaries as part of a city living and focus instead on barricading homes? It's a fair question. The thing about burglars, they're probably just looking for bread. As AOC once said about hordes of organized retail looters. You remember the riots, right? Hundreds of looters running out of stores with loaves of sourdough in boxes that for some reason had Nike logos on them. Maybe that's why car theft is soaring in San Francisco. There might be bread in there. That's why murder is way up. People are foolishly defending bread. Ugh. And if you can't tolerate that, maybe it's you who is the problem. What do you have against theft? Do you have property privilege? Don't you see that you having that wallet lords over that man with the knife who doesn't have a wallet? But I guess that's what they mean by reimagining public safety. Criminals don't rob people. People have stuff that needs robbing. Meanwhile, the media has taken the low expectation bar to a new low. They point out that rising inflation is really a good thing, so get used to it. It's the exact thing I used to tell myself back in college when the rash kept returning. MSNBC tried vainly to explain why inflation is a good thing, but less people bought it than tickets to see the movie Cats. They explained that Americans can only pay more for heating, oil, gas, and food if they first, of course, have more money. Except all that printed money makes it worth less, requiring you to spend more of it for the same stuff. The argument that Americans are buying more because they have more is just like Biden claiming $3.5 trillion costs zero. It doesn't add up. If only the price of peanut butter was as low as his IQ. Cheap shot. And now heating costs, unlike Joe's approval ratings, are expected to skyrocket. His own energy secretary warned that Americans will have to pay more to heat their homes this winter. So what does Joe do? Closes more pipelines. Because that worked with the Keystone, right? Slapping restrictions on fracking didn't help either. Energy independence is now as over as Mayor Pete's paternity leave. Thank God he lost the baby weight. So even amid a global energy crisis, they want to shut down the L5 pipeline from Michigan to Canada. And when they told the Prez about the L5, he just yelled, bingo. He's more out of loop than cat at a convent. I don't know what that means. So why does Joe Biden close pipelines? Because they give you gas. Which is his problem, not ours. Really, the only pipeline he should be shutting is the one that runs from his stomach to his ass. Talk about lower expectations, more like lower intestinal expectations. You know it's bad when the British royals' only takeaway from that climate meeting was that Joe's farts were the longest heard in recorded history, and louder than the maiden flight of the Concorde. The Duke of Windsor, more like breaking Windsor. Camilla Parker Bowles, more like Joe Biden's bowels. Eric Swalwell must be green with envy. Or broccoli. Either way, he needs to up his fiber intake. Because while Joe may not outsmart you, he will outfart you. What's happening to me?
I really do think the intervention you held for me really paid off. I feel almost like a new man. It's kind of... Oh, you gotta be kidding me. This is another intervention?
Yes!
I stopped with the poop jokes.
It's not the poop jokes, it's the fart jokes today.
But I stopped the poop jokes. What do you got against fart jokes?
What did Eric Swalwell do to deserve this, besides, you know?
Blow it out your ass.
That's what we're talking about.
Shut up!
2 interventions in 2 days. I'm breaking Cat's record. So we went from peace in the Middle East, relaxed tensions in North Korea, Operation Warp Speed, all from Trump, to this, a man who passes the buck as much as he passes the wind. Sorry. And look at the media. You want low expectations? CNN happily defends Joe, saying there's nothing he could do to reduce the energy prices. Yeah, because increasing drilling and not blocking pipelines just isn't possible. But CNN, they have a lot on their plate. Their 2 primetime hosts are currently accused of various things from groping to even more groping. But maybe they're hard of hearing. When their boss said all hands on deck, they heard all hands on, you know the rest. So why are the media and politicians embracing low expectations? Well, it takes the pressure off them to do the actual work. The politicians don't have to solve the problems, and the hacks at CNN don't have to call them on it for not solving the problems. Just get the American people to accept failure, and we could all put it on cruise control. But more important, while you're expected to lower expectations, they don't. They can afford any hardship. To fund the police, no problem. They got hired security. They're closing the nearby Walgreens. Cool, my assistant picks up the generic Viagra for me. That was just an example. Gas costs more. My driver Jeeves takes care of that after he rubs my feet in jelly. So let him eat cake until the price of milk, eggs, and sugar makes that no longer possible. Because more people needing handouts means more potential Democrat votes. But even Biden's chief of staff admits things are looking bad. I wonder if Ron Klain thinks it's been a rough and tough year.
It's been a rough and tough year, and we knew it would be. President Biden has said this all the time. We're in a year-long effort to dig out of the holes we were left.
Yeah, the holes. They're digging out of holes. No, they just dug them deeper, and where there weren't any holes, like the energy sector, they went out and they dug new ones. And that's the scam. Run the country into the ground, even under the ground, because they're not affected by it. It's all on you, and you better suck it up. Unless in a year you go to the polls and treat them all like dirt. Joining me now to discuss the current state of the Biden administration, the president's chief of staff, Ron Klain. Hello, Mr. Klain.
Hello, Greg.
First off, welcome to the show. I want to get right to it. Both gas and electricity prices and rent are really high. What's the administration's plan to get them down? Do you have any?
Well, gas isn't high if you have an electric car, and if electricity is included in your rent, that's no problem, and rent's not a problem either if you own your own mansion like I do.
You seem to have all the answers for yourself, but it also sounds like you're a glass is always half full kind of guy.
Actually, Greg, I'm a glass half empty kind of guy. Glass half full is pessimistic because it's better if you have less. For instance, no one ever said, I wish I had more diarrhea, unless it's you writing your monologue jokes.
That wasn't necessary, and it also doesn't make any sense.
You're wrong, Greg. It makes perfect sense. Life depends on your outlook. You could be sitting in a beautiful mansion you own and think, this sucks. Or you could be constantly struggling to survive and say to yourself, cool, it's like I'm Job from the Bible. So next time you go to the grocery store and you see empty shelves, instead of complaining, just thank your lucky stars. We're blessed with so many shelves.
Wow, Ron, this has been eye-opening.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Thank you, the president's chief of staff, Ron Klain, everyone. Now, let's welcome tonight's guest. She knows how to approach the bench, then cartwheel over it, outnumbered co-host Emily Campagno. He's so bright he has to turn himself off in the movie theater. Former White House National Security Council aide Kash Patel. She's like a spider web, skinny, white, and full of dead insect carcasses. Fox News contributor Kat Tibbs. And the Tower of Pisa was fine until he leaned on it. My massive sidekick and the NWA's World Television Champion, Tyrus. Emily, happy birthday.
Oh, thanks.
You got any plans tonight?
This is great.
Oh, that's good. Excellent. Yeah, because it's very late right now. You're not going to go out after this show. It'll be like midnight.
Right. Straight to bed.
Straight to bed, like you always do. Up at the crack of dawn.
Yep.
Good for you, you psychopath. Isn't it kind of a terrible strategy to force Americans to think about the upside of inflation rather than try to treat it?
Absolutely. What do our tax dollars pay for? That's what I want to know. Let's take San Francisco. So it's one of the most expensive cities in the world to live in. It's why Black and brown communities have been pushed out of it. It's why people pay taxes, property taxes alone, in the millions simply to exist there. And yet now they're being told that what their tax dollars do is pay for nothing because they should just barricade themselves in there. And then part of the argument by the mainstream media for inflation was, well, coming out of 2020, Americans were the, quote, richest they've ever been. Well, on the backs of what administration was that exactly? Because the second this administration took the helm, things turned.
Yeah.
And in terms of the tax situation and the inflation, that this administration and all of its elitism, its tone deafness, its refusal to connect with ordinary, real Americans. The price of children's shoes is up the highest it's ever been.
Don't I know
Inflation. Exactly. Since they started keeping records. There you go.
Yeah.
Furniture, heating the home up $700 estimated this season. These are things that everyone has to deal with, that affects every single ordinary American, except for the people in this administration that continue to tell us that we are the enemy, we should just shut up and take it, and yet keep paying more taxes to pay for these crime-ridden neighborhoods that don't protect us.
And just, I know people laugh, but like there is a strategy to buying children's shoes because they're cheaper, even at the same size, than the adult shoes. That's why I shop at Gap for Kids.
That's true. That's a bonus.
Cash, you know what I find really funny about this whole thing?
That
Is
I also shop at Gap for Kids.
yes, that jacket. I've seen that before.
It's extra large.
Oh, there you go. See what I mean? You know what's weird is that the left creates the policies that then they beg you to lower your expectations for. The perfect example is we're for defunding the police, but now you have to barricade yourself. So it's like now up to you to face the consequences of their own policies.
Well, that's what they do. I mean, Minnesota's a perfect example, Seattle, whatever you want to talk about it. And I always go to gated communities. It's kind of the perfect example. So many on the left live in these gated communities up on the hills in these vaunted palaces. And until the crime actually hits them, then when it does hit them, they say, Donald Trump, you screwed up. We're getting attacked. And we have to actually put criminals in jail. But again, the left continues to put criminals in jail, lets them out the next day, and then they go out and rape old women, which is totally tragic. And it happens monthly, not to mention 2-year-olds getting shot in Chicago.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's Trump's fault.
Yeah, there you go. You know, Tyrus, they are counting on our unsophistication to understand what they're doing. Isn't that true? They assume we're all really dumb, right? If they could tell, if somebody's trying to tell you inflation is a good thing, they're calling you an idiot.
Well, you know what, Greg? I kind of got to disagree with you. They didn't ask.
Yeah.
They're not having the conversation. They're not saying, hey, I'd like to have your thoughts. Oh, I already know. I got you.
Yeah.
Less police, more funding things for me and my friends, and you guys will just kind of figure it out. They didn't ask anyone. You've yet, well, I mean, the poor fella can't ask a question anyways. We literally saw that. He tried to ask a hypothetical, and we ended up on an episode of Gilligan's Island. We just never know where this guy's going to go. But unfortunately, the ones who do know, they're perfectly fine with it because in a way, this is their way of retribution. You had 4 years where you kind of did what you wanted and you said what you wanted and you went out and you capitalized on capitalism and you opened businesses. Oh, not on our watch. It's not going to happen. We're taking all that away. We're all going to share everything except our stuff.
Exactly. And the reason why they're doing that, Kat, is to make the population more dependent on the government. They were less dependent on the government under Trump. Now they have no choice because everything's expensive and you get the free money there and that creates inflation.
Unless you don't want your house to be broken into.
Yes, that's true.
Then you're all on your own. I remember these are the same people who years ago were saying, remember the victim blaming thing? Like if you said, hey, like, maybe, women, you shouldn't walk around in this park, alone at night. That was victim blaming. But now if you're like, well, my house is burglarized, like, yeah, were you barricading yourself inside of it?
Yes.
As if it were a zombie apocalypse? Because maybe you should have done that.
Yeah, that's on them.
It doesn't, that's like, I want the government to do very little. As a libertarian, I want them to do absolutely nothing almost, except for keep people from stealing my stuff and keep people from killing people and raping people. And that's the part where they're deciding to slack.
Exactly. And it's all this other extraneous stuff that they're clinging to, correct?
Make sure your 2-year-old has a mask on.
I know. They're IDing children.
Yeah.
IDing children for certain indoor activities. Well, I'm often mistaken. But like, you can't ask for an ID anywhere else. You can't get a homeless guy off your porch. You can't do anything like that. But they're gonna force a kid to have his papers, right? The papers for kids are only for potty training. I don't know what that means.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.